This is CBC Vancouver News.
Paradise burned to ashes.
It was very scary, I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty harrowing.
Traveling British Columbians grateful to be home as thousands in Hawaii grapple with devastating losses. Heat wave warning.
We are expecting higher than normal temperatures across British Columbia.
Officials are urging people to take precautions as hot weather is set to sink in. And BC Supreme Court has rejected a class action lawsuit over Lytton fire damages. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. Dan is away tonight. The disaster in Hawaii is being felt on the islands and beyond. At least 53 people have been killed by raging wildfires, and that number is expected to rise. The fire in Maui is the most dangerous and catastrophic, but multiple fires are raging across Hawaii. Lindsay Duncombe now on the evacuation efforts and how some Canadians stuck there are now making their harrowing trek home.
Oh my gosh!
Even from the air, it's hard to grasp the scope of the loss. On the ground, individual scenes of horror.
This is not even the worst of it. Still get dead bodies in the water floating and on the seawall. They've been sitting there since last night. We've been pulling people out since last night.
The death toll certain to rise.
We do know that more people have perished. We also are only now getting some of our search and rescue personnel into other houses. There are helicopters floating around the community right now. That number is going to go up very significantly.
Lahaina, a tourist town home to 12,000 people, is flattened. Homes, livelihoods, gone.
Everyone that I know and love, everyone that I'm related to, that I communicate with, my colleagues, friends, family, we're all homeless.
From governments, promises to help.
Anyone who's lost a loved one whose home has been damaged or destroyed is going to get help immediately.
The scale of this disaster is rattling confidence in systems designed to protect people. There are reports 911 wasn't working, no internet or phone service for days. Not surprising to people who plan for emergencies.
Unfortunately, communications are a huge challenge in the disaster context. These are the moments when the systems are under the highest amount of strain and stress, and they're also vulnerable to the same kinds of disruption that we're experiencing.
We had no connection to the outside world for almost 3 days.
Natalie Barsasat is from BC. She spent the night in a rental car in a Walmart parking lot after being rescued from her hotel by the National Guard.
This poor woman was crying next to me, holding her 3-month-old baby. Her house was burnt down. Her dog died in the fire, and she couldn't get hold of her husband, who was somewhere near her old house. And it was just horrifying.
Barsasat has a flight home. She's worried, though, for the people who can't leave, that the horror for those who live here is still unfolding. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
For British Columbians, the images of fires ripping through the streets of Maui are heartbreaking to see. It's a popular tourist spot for many in this province. Today, travelers coming home at YVR shared what they saw.
My friend lost his cottage and his home. My daughter's good friend, they lost their home. So we know people personally that are homeless.
So we checked out of a hotel and didn't really have a place to stay, and ended up Westin Resort allowed us to just stay in their lobby. So we pulled out of one of those suntan chairs and just slept last night.
We're just really grateful that we got on our flight. We slept at the Maui airport for 24 hours.
It was very scary, I'm not gonna lie. It was pretty harrowing, and your dream vacation turns into something like this. You didn't know, but at least we weren't affected. The people there are having it a lot worse. Their homes, their livelihoods.
Another BC resident who fled the island and is now home safe says the peace of paradise will never be the same again. Olivia Hung's recent trip to Maui was cut short after wildfires torched the house she was staying in.
I was staying at my friend's house because I'm visiting them. That was why I was there. It was like sort of like a trip also to catch up with them. And like when I learned of the fires, of course, like there was no electricity, there was no signal, there was no water or anything. So when I learned of the fires was when I actually saw the fires through the window. We did not know when to evacuate. We were just sort of trapped because like no service, nothing. We don't know what's going on. We could like, it was like a waiting game. We can only sit there and wait. It was really hectic when like we had a lot of stuff. One of our friends made multiple trips downstairs and upstairs to load the car. And my friend has 3 cats and one of them was really anxious. He was hiding under the couch. At the last moment, she was like turning the couches upside down, trying to find a cat. And I was freaking out, wondering if we would get out on time. And then once we got in the car, we drove to near Kahului where we got signal, and then we started calling possible people in the area, asking them if we could stay with them. And in the end, we stayed with my friend's mom's best friend, and they are still there at this moment. The roads, there was a lot of cars pulled over because some people, they had nowhere to go. They could like only like just sit at the side of the road and wait. And then there were like power lines that were down. I remember we had to drive over one and we were really scared because we didn't know if it was going to explode or not. I'm really relieved, really tired, but like, I'm glad I still have a home to go to because my friends, their house burned down. Like everyone I know, their homes burned down. And like, I'm looking through like my vacation pictures and it's like so hard because knowing like all of those places are gone now is probably like the last time I'll ever go there. And it's never going to be the same again.
And as BC grapples with our own wildfires and drought, a heat wave is expected over much of the province by this weekend. Officials warning people to take precautions as temperatures could spike to the high 30s in some parts of BC. But as John Hernandez reports, longer August nights could keep those record temperatures at bay.
A burst of rain and clouds have provided a little relief over what's been a hot and dry summer, but it won't last very long.
Starting this weekend, we are expecting higher than normal temperatures across British Columbia.
Environment Canada says a heat wave could hit much of BC as early as Sunday.
Heat warnings will still be very possible, especially for Vancouver Island, the South Coast, and southwestern interior. Those are locations that we're going to be watching closely for a heat warning starting as early as Sunday.
Temperatures in Metro Vancouver could reach up to 30 degrees, and it will likely be even hotter in the interior. The saving grace? Longer nights means temperatures likely won't reach record highs.
While these elevated temperatures may pose risks, I do want to assure everyone that this upcoming heat event is not expected to be as extreme as the event that we faced in June and July of 2021.
That historic heat dome killed more than 600 people across the province. Conditions haven't been nearly as lethal this year. The BC Coroner's Service says it's investigating just 3 potential heat-related deaths recorded last month. The province's top doctor says there are deaths every year, which is why it's crucial to take precautions.
It's important to be aware, to find a place in your home that's cool, to make sure that you do things to keep it cool during the day, like keeping the blinds closed and the windows closed during the day, and then allowing that cool air to come in at night, taking those personal measures.
The high temperatures can be particularly taxing for those working outside, including thousands of wildfire crews across the province.
Our staff are very used to working in very grueling and challenging conditions, but obviously when you start to see upper 30s and even, we've seen temperatures into the 40s, it does have an impact as you're working really hard on the slopes of BC trying to put out fires. So it's something we'll be monitoring closely.
Another hurdle amid a challenging summer, but temperatures are expected to ease late next week. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Nearly 24 people in Surrey are displaced from their homes after at least 4 houses were destroyed in a fire last night in the Clayton neighborhood. Tonight, we're learning more about the heroic efforts of neighbors who jumped in to try and save their community.
The first thing that I did, it was calling 911. Mia, immediately I was surprised, like she ran and started like knocking in every door. I was helping people get their pets, kids, get out of the houses quickly because, I bet it was scary for them. I thought, what would my dad do? and I thought he would just run to the houses and start knocking on doors. So that's what I did.
Their home wasn't impacted by the fire, but they say the moment they saw the flames shoot up, they kicked into high gear along with other neighbors.
I just knew I couldn't let them die. This kind of shows that kids can do anything they put their mind to.
Surrey Fire says the blaze started around 6:30 last night in a garage at a home on 192nd Street and 73rd Avenue. They say the 4 homes are not stable enough to live in, and there could be more as they continue to go through debris. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. A BC Supreme Court judge has rejected a bid to certify a class action lawsuit against 2 Canadian rail companies that the plaintiffs were alleging were responsible for a wildfire that tore through Lytton in 2021. Lytton residents Jordan Spinks and Chris O'Connor claim the fire could have been prevented. They are seeking financial compensation from CP Rail, CN Rail, and the Attorney General of Canada, among others. In his ruling, Chief Justice Christopher Hinkson says the plaintiffs' pleadings didn't meet the criteria to be certified as a class action lawsuit, adding there was no evidence to support the claim that the defendants were responsible for starting the fire. The ruling states the plaintiffs may amend their pleadings. In a statement, the lawyer for the plaintiffs say they intend to do just that, saying they remain confident that a class action is still the best avenue to represent the interests of the affected individuals. The cause of the 2021 Lytton fire has yet to be determined. However, many locals alleged seeing sparks flying from the nearby railway. In October 2021, investigators with the Transportation Safety Board found there was no connection between railway operations through Lytton and the fire that destroyed the village. The final print editions of 3 Lower Mainland newspapers were published today. The union says the parent company of Burnaby Now, Tri-City News, and the New Westminster Record announced last month it would cut print production after this last run, and layoffs could be coming tomorrow. The publishers for the 2 outlets says Glacier Media made the decision due to shifting market conditions. The 3 publications will now be digital only.
You know, if you have a kid who's an exceptional athlete or an artist, or, you know, you have people who do prominent things in the community, often the first notice of that is in your community newspaper. And these are things that get clipped and hung up and saved, and they are a common experience amongst the community. And even though it is a sign of the times, it makes me quite sad.
Glacier Media has not said whether any of its other community newspapers across BC and Western Canada will cut their print runs as well. The Supreme Court of Canada has refused to hear an appeal from 3 BC churches who say COVID public health orders violated their constitutional rights. After losing their case in BC courts, the Fraser Valley churches applied for an appeal. They claim Dr. Bonnie Henry violated their charter rights by banning indoor religious services at the height of the pandemic. The BC Supreme Court Chief Justice ruled in April of 2021 the regulations violated a section of the charter, but said given the threat of COVID-19, a temporary ban was reasonable. The initial petition was launched by a group of pastors from Langley, Abbotsford, and Chilliwack. Crown prosecutors have dropped cases against nearly 150 Fairy Creek protesters over the RCMP's handling of the arrests. Officers only read part of a court order to demonstrators instead of the full text. A judge says that shortened version didn't give protesters enough information to understand the order they were accused of breaking. This comes after Canada's highest court refused to hear an appeal, acquitting one of the demonstrators of criminal contempt. The Fairy Creek protest started after logging permits were granted back in 2020. Confrontations escalated in 2021, leading to RCMP intervention that saw more than 1,000 demonstrators arrested. Well, one of Vancouver's most iconic landmarks is once again illuminating the skyline. The dome at Science World has been dark for months as part of ongoing building upgrades, but as of just a couple hours ago, the newly updated, more energy-efficient lighting system, complete with 651 LED lights, are sparkling bright once again. And dozens of people with cameras in hand were there to take it all in.
I've lived in this neighborhood for a long time, and so I saw the fall and the rise and the refall and now the glorious third rise of the Science World lights. And I've never seen a display like this before. You know, the jump from the white lights from Expo to the original pattern that had a bit of color in it. This is just dazzling.
The building upgrades were supported by a $10 million cash infusion from the federal government last October and a $20 million in provincial funding. The dome now has 3 times as many lights as before. The lights will be illuminated each evening from dusk to dawn. It's an effort to make way for Indigenous plants to thrive. More on what organizers describe as physical decolonizing after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. On a peaceful summer day, it's hard to imagine the violence that once played out on what is now the New Brunswick-Nova Scotia border. 268 years ago, it was a bloody battleground. The French occupied one side, while the British held the other, as the CBC's Khalil Akhtar caught up with a historian.
So James, you've brought me out to the marsh here. It's a beautiful sunny day, but this was a violent place for periods of time. This was Fort Lawrence.
When you look at this marsh and you see how peaceful it is, and it's you know, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's you know, it's a very relaxing place to be, and it's kind of hard to imagine, you know, the context that this place that we're standing in, you know, some of the things that it's been through over the course of its existence. The first time this place gets burned in like a quasi-military action is 1696. Then it gets pillaged and attacked again in the early 1700s, even still somewhat after the end of what we would call the 7 Years' War in 1763. We're standing on the remains of a fort that once, you know, guarded a side of this marsh, which, honest to goodness, there's a decades-long period where trying to cross from one side of this marsh to the other actually could get you killed.
Yeah, because if you look on the horizon there's Fort Beausejour over there. Yeah. This was Fort Lawrence. Tell me about this dynamic. A fort over there, a fort over here, and a marsh in between.
If you are in Europe and you want to control the northeastern seaboard of North America and you own this, you're basically good. If you're in North America and you want to protect this entire chunk of the northeastern seaboard during that entire period of time, and you own this, you're basically good. The problem is people recognize that, and that's why it gets fought over. So this place is, again, does not look like it, like so many incredibly important historic locations. Actual global history has hinged here on a number of occasions. And if things had gone slightly differently, we would not live in the world we currently inhabit. The fundamental differences that would have been caused by differences here actually are that critically important when you look at global history. If this exchange of territory had been handled more peacefully instead of burning a town,
we would live in a different country.
Absolutely. And, you know, not going to put value judgments on that, but things that happened where we are right now inform moments in Canadian history that we still cope with.
Every month on the lands of the Secum First Nation, volunteers gather to clear a species of invasive ivy. The organizers describe the work as physical decolonizing. It's all in an effort to make way for Indigenous plants to thrive.
We are here in the Jim Forest doing restoration, healing the land, and there's tons of volunteers here today, which I'm really grateful for.
Just to be in the forest and work with other people. I'm just here volunteering to pull the ivy.
As I've been learning about invasive plants, I've seen that this forest needs help. And so I started this initiative 2 years ago, and people are helping me and helping us and my family.
So if you look around the forest, there's ivy growing up a lot of these trees in these thick ropes. Step one of the project was going around and severing the bottom of the ivy there so that, everything above it will die.
Taking the ivy off the ground, a lot of the trailing native blackberry has come back. There's little June plums that come up. Ocean spray, there's trilliums that have come up. Now that we've given them space, they're just way bigger and happier.
It's a very exciting opportunity to be able to work on this land.
I've been kind of teaching my family about, the detriment of invasives and the importance of native plants. And so we're all kind of learning together as a family and reclaiming that knowledge together.
I always feel way better having done this and feel like I did something.
Decolonization is part of the reason I'm here.
I call this work physically decolonizing a place.
How under Indigenous guidance, settlers might be able to, better show up for Indigenous people on terms that are meaningful to Indigenous folks. And part of my time here is to explore my experiences here and how other people maybe interact with our hosts, with the land, and with what we're actively doing.
A lot of people ask me, I want to be an ally and I want to do something and I just want to help. And I always encourage people, if you're physically able to be here and do the work, this is a tangible, feasible way to decolonize.
And I think just taking that time and being present and being with other people, and you're there, you're working, you end up having these kind of unique conversations that you don't necessarily have. People when you're just outside working together, I think is very unique. And I think that brings people together. A year later, you come back and you're already seeing the native plants come back. And that almost feels like that instant gratification there.
So I feel like the land has been shown love, and once you give something love, it gives you love back. And once you take care of a place, it takes care of you.
And here we have a little sneak peek from earlier tonight. All the lights lit up at Science World Dome, courtesy of our CBC Tower Cam. Darius Madavi has our full forecasts next.
My letter to the Vancouver Courier newspaper.
There were those for it.
I feel that Bryan Adams has done more for Vancouver than any other musician.
There were those against it.
You can say free tickets till you're blue in the face, but I spell big money here, one way or the other.
There was the city engineer and the police department, who said that with less than 2 weeks to go, there just wasn't enough time to organize security to handle a larger crowd.
The fans at a Bryan Adams concert are without a doubt probably the best behaved, the most responsible and clean-cut crowd that you could possibly have. Who goes to a Bryan Adams show? Families go to a Bryan Adams show.
And there was Bruce Allen himself. Although he was pushing for an open concert, Allen offered some intriguing concessions.
The concert we now propose is to take place in the daylight with a maximum of 2 acts, only 4 hours long, between the hours of 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Now, the results of these changes are very apparent. By having this concert for a shorter duration and only during the daylight, we minimize the damage, if any, to the grass. And we eliminate the chance that those people who are interested in causing problems can now not do so under the cover of darkness. We believe this shortening of the show to be a major, major concession, but a concession that should please everyone.
He didn't stop there.
There will be merchandise available at this event. We propose that the Parks Board take 30% off the top, and we also propose that the Parks Board staff up the concessions and participate totally 100% in the area of food and drink. We will not participate in this area of potential income.
But after hours of haggling, listening to both sides on the issue, The park board denied the changes Allen was after and killed the concert.
It's very obvious to me, too, after sitting through a meeting like this, that the bureaucrats are running the city because the people are in favor of this concert. I don't care what public poll they want to bring up, the people are in favor of this concert, but the bureaucrats don't want to go through the work of having to pull it off.
And Allen tore a strip off the Vancouver police for their estimated policing bill of $94,000.
To me, that price that they threw at us was nothing but a gouge. It was nothing about somebody trying to make a lot of money off a free event. It was unconscionable. It was ridiculous. As the gentleman said, the Black Crowes concert with 50,000 people in Toronto, their police bill was $5,500. The Paul Simon concert in New York with 750,000 people was $75,000.
The Vancouver Police Department was not going to make one dime on this concert. We don't make money on concerts. The city has a policy that the police are to recover their costs on special events. All we were doing was adhering to that policy. The manpower requirements are set by our department, not the promoter, based on what we deem necessary to safely police the event.
Bruce Allen Talent says Adams is disappointed with the cancellation, but that he'd still like to do a Stanley Park show sometime. But it won't happen on this tour. Considering it took Adams 5 years to get this show on the road, it could be a long time before Vancouver fans get a free concert offer again.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver Inbox. Support sustainable agriculture and celebrate local food with Margaret Gallagher at Feast of Fields. Enjoy the Gourmet Harvest Festival at the Stable Harvest Farms on September 10th. Tickets at farmfolkcityfolk.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Well, a bit of a weird day today, Darius, with the cooler temperatures in the morning, but the second that sun came out, I felt the heat.
Me too. I felt exactly the same way. It did start off a bit cool. We're still feeling the effects of that cold front that passed through just a couple days ago. We're still feeling that cool air, and we will for a couple days yet, but then we're going to feel a heat wave start to come in, and that has a lot of implications for our drought rating. Now, this is the first time in weeks we haven't seen it change when the province released their weekly update this morning, but I wouldn't expect that to hold because of the heat wave that we have coming in this weekend. Sunday, we're probably going to start to see those temperatures really jump up in most places in the province. Same goes for the fire danger rating. We didn't see many changes from yesterday to today. A little bit down in spots, a little bit higher in spots, but really looks almost exactly the same. That's going to change a lot by the time we check in again on Monday, because I expect the fire danger is going to go way up as a result of that heat over the couple days into the beginning of next week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's going to be much yellower once again, unfortunately. Now, we do have this low pressure system still in place. That's what brought us the cold front, was pushing showers into much of the province. It's now receded, and now the dominant feature is going to be this ridge. Over the next few days, or not the next few days, but for a couple days, we're going to have it just sit over Victoria and Vancouver, just bringing us some nice clear skies, but temperatures don't come up much until later this week. As that ridge grows and sets up, especially in the southern interior, those temperatures are going to jump across the province. You start to see them really come up with this red color. In the southern interior, by Sunday, we're going to see temperatures in the mid-30s. Later into Monday and Tuesday, those jump into the high 30s. Here in Vancouver, if you're by the water, it's going to be closer to, I'd say, high 20s into the beginning of next week. Low 30s if you're further inland, maybe even hitting mid-30s on Tuesday. So this is our forecast for tomorrow. You don't see those temperatures come up yet. You just see a bit of clearing heading up into the southern interior. Here in Vancouver, it looks pretty similar. You see a bit of a jump on Sunday. Other places, like further inland, you're going to see a bigger jump, but that's really what we can expect heading into next week.
Well, Darius, I think you might have to trade in that blazer for something a little cooler in the coming days. Thanks so much for everything.
You'll see me in a t-shirt next week.
That is your late news for this Thursday. Thank you so much for watching. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Have a great night.